Now we are.
Episode 2.
This is try
Redo. R-E-D-U-X.
Yeah.
Redo.
Redo.
Okay.
Yeah, because
right,
the first
good.
time when I messed up.
It's all good, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't even remember what we talked about. It was just fun. We were just back and forth, talking about stuff.
But yeah, anyways, so guys, this is my friend Richard. He was I don't know if you want to present yourself or not.
Atlanta police officer for 30 years.
Yeah.
And I was a detective for 18 years, and I was a sergeant for 9.
Yeah.
And before that, I was a patrol officer, and had quite the career in the Atlanta Police Department.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool, man. We're working in Atlanta.
Jordy asked me to basically talk about some of the excursions, if you will, that we participated in.
Yeah.
And some of the incidences are quite interesting.
Yeah.
So we talked about it before, and Jordy asked me, he goes, would you be willing to talk about some of your exploits?
Yeah, some of the exploits, man.
Exploits.
Because they were really interesting and stuff, but you know, you said not because of like some D&D you signed or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So you know, some of the situations were quite hairy and dangerous, but you're when you're out there, you're not really thinking about the danger to you. You're thinking about grabbing this dangerous person from society. One incident that comes to mind, I was quite new on the police department, and what happens is when you are assigned to a zone and you don't really know where you're at, they usually put you with another officer.
Yeah.
So I was assigned to the northwest quadrant of the city of Atlanta. It was named, the name of the zone was called Zone 1.
Yeah.
And you
so
really don't.
So where's the Zone 1 at?
Zone 1 is actually the northwest section of Atlanta.
Okay.
The city limits. They've changed some of the names, so you probably won't recognize some of the names from back then. But the main thoroughfare through Zone 1 is a street called Donald Lee Hollowell, which used to be called Bankhead Highway.
Yeah.
So that goes right through the zone, and there's before now they had what they called government housing projects. So it was a situation where they created housing for the extreme poor.
Yeah.
And with that, you got your share of crime.
Yeah, the projects and stuff.
So Zone 1 had more housing projects than any other zone in the city. So you found yourself answering a lot of calls for service in these housing projects. As well as, you know, you had your Section 8 and other housing in that area that brought in the extreme poor. So with the extreme poor, you have predators that take advantage of those people.
Yeah.
So you have your drug dealers and your other perpetrators that, you know, prey on these people in those areas. And there's a distrust for police.
Yeah.
So a lot of times they won't call for help. They will just write it off and go on about their business.
Yeah. And why do you think it's that we don't have like trust?
Well, I mean, there was Atlanta has a very rich history, but it wasn't until the 1950s before black police officers were able to come on the police department. So, and when I came on in the 80s, that was still in the recent memory of Atlanta police. And you have all these images of police officers in the 50s and 60s using canines to attack civil rights marchers.
Well, damn.
So that was all in the minds of police and the public, and therefore they had a distrust for police. And so while the Atlanta Police Department was fully integrated when I came on. Matter of fact, one of my first nights, I was riding with a black police officer named Vince Mosley. One of the most wonderful people. You know, we're still friends to this day. A great police officer. And he was beat 103 on the morning watch, which is 11 at night till 7 in the morning. So we got a call of an armed robbery, which is a citizen that had been robbed. I'm not sure who called, but they gave the description of the person and the direction of travel, and we were able to locate the individual. And he ran into an apartment building and ran up some stairs. And, you know, when you're chasing an armed subject, you know, you have your weapon out too.
Yeah.
And you're thinking that, you know, you can get a better, that you're capable enough to be able to defend yourself and effect the arrest and disarm the guy, not knowing that the guy could wait and, you know, take you out at any given moment. You're not thinking about the ramifications of making a mistake.
Yeah.
Because you're young and you're thinking, I'm going to catch this guy. Well, luckily for us, he ran up the stairs and ditched the pistol and then hid like at the end of the hallway.
Oh, really?
He was laid down in a corner like we're going to go away. So here we come running up the steps. You know, we're armed looking around, and I got my flashlight out. And sure enough, I said, well, there he is in the corner. Let me see your hands. He shows his hands, and we both go over there and handcuff him and everything like that. And he goes, you know, he's saying, you know, I'm homeless. I don't live here, but, you know, I just found a warm corner spot.
No.
I don't know what you're talking about, you know. And so he's making us think that he's the wrong guy. You know, like we got the wrong guy.
Yeah.
So, you know, and you think to yourself, well, maybe we do got the wrong guy. We're going to find out. So we got to call the victim, find out where the victim is, and then go see if we got the right guy. So we get the guy handcuffed, and Vince is walking the guy back down the stairs to the patrol car, and I'm looking around for maybe where he ditched the weapon. So we found this like a pipe where you would abandon water pipe from the building where it used to probably be a gutter, and it's stacked up with trash. So I'm like, well, maybe, you know, he stuck the gun down in there. Maybe he stuck it in the wall. Maybe he threw it before he got in here. So I'm pulling the trash out of this thing, looking down there, and I see a handle. And sure enough, I pull out a .44 Magnum.
Dang.
I'm like, and it's fully loaded.
Really?
Fully loaded. I'm like, that could have been deadly for both of us.
Yeah.
Because with 6 rounds, and you know, a .44 is probably big as a nickel.
Really? Wow.
Right. So if you get hit with one of those things,
dude, you're gone.
You're probably not going to survive.
Yeah, you're gone.
So we found the weapon, recovered the weapon, we fingerprinted it, we got his fingerprints on it, so we connected him to the weapon. And then when we got a hold of the victim, we had him meet outside, and she come running out. That's him, that's him, that's him. So the identification was complete.
Yeah.
So, you know, I caught my first armed robber. Here I was on the street, first or second night out there.
And how'd that feel, man? Did he, like, you were like, oh man, like,
well,
I'm
I mean,
that guy.
your adrenaline's pumping.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, it's like you know, some people think, well, you're working at 11 at night till 7 in the morning. Do you get sleepy? Not after that. You're wide awake, ready to go.
But I mean, I'm pretty sure at that time, like, that's where all the fun starts. The fun
well,
stuff
it
happens.
may be fun, but you don't realize how deadly dangerous it is.
But yeah.
I mean, that guy could have killed both of us and probably wouldn't. I mean, how would you solve it?
Yeah, like you being a rookie, you're like, oh man, like I'm.
Right, you're hard charged. You're going to go get the bad guy.
Yeah. You
so we got the guy and made the case, and you know, the next day you have to go to court for the preliminary hearing. Court was at 8 o'clock the next morning. So you got to have the victim in court. You got to be in court, and you got to testify in court before what they do is they find probable cause to determine if your arrest is good, and then the thing goes over to the grand jury for an indictment and then trial. Mm-hmm. So you have to go to court the next morning at 8 o'clock on every case you make. And so, you know, you got to, when you see the way it worked is you would get off at 7 and court didn't start till 8.
Yeah.
So you had to sit around for an hour and do nothing.
Just
and wait on court. You know, everybody's in the courtroom waiting. You're just in there with other officers who's made their cases in the 5 other zones. So you're waiting for your perpetrator to be called up to the stand and testify.
Yeah.
And then you got to tell what you did, and then they'll bind it over. If you, depending on how many cases you made that night, how long you're going to spend in court. Mm-hmm. And then after that, you go home, and you got to, go to sleep, get up, do it all over. You go home, you get home around 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, you're so ginned up. How you going to go to sleep? For the first year, you it's hard to get to sleep.
Yeah.
After a year, you can, it's pretty easy to get to sleep. But yeah, that's just one of the incidents that's just, it's like that you realize that, hey, you're the only thing between these criminals and the public.
And going back to like the housing projects, like what's like the craziest thing like you heard or seen or happening there in those poor communities? Because I imagine like there's a lot of domestic violence, kids and stuff, like people overdosing and stuff.
Well, see, what I found troubling was that they were supposed to be for females.
Yeah.
For females with children. Mm-hmm. Well, they would be in there and they would get government housing, and then they would bring their boyfriend in.
Yeah.
See, they're not on the lease.
Yeah.
So you would get a call for domestic violence, and then it's like, well, who beat you? Well, my baby daddy.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, well, he's not your boyfriend or your husband. No, he's my baby daddy. So perpetrator gets her pregnant. She's in government housing, but she's letting him live there at the government expense.
Yeah.
So what you're wondering, how in the world, I'm going to write a report. This could be prevented by not letting him be here.
Yeah.
Or either telling her if she lets her boyfriend here that she loses her government housing. Why can't you fix it by that? So the government doesn't want to do anything about it. Mm-hmm. They set that system up like that. So there was a metamorphosis, about the OJ trial.
Yeah.
How he beat Nicole before he murdered her.
Yeah.
Well, that went through a metamorphosis where police officers were trained in domestic violence that if there's probable cause, there's no more ambiguity. You arrest them.
Yeah.
So we went through a situation where you would interview and try to mediate and then leave. And hopefully it wouldn't happen again. If you get another call, then you would come back and make an arrest on a domestic violence. Mm-hmm. The theory became that it's cyclic. And if you don't get these people, these perpetrators in the system, then they're going to end up dead.
Yeah.
So they actually came up with a program, a computer program, and they called it George, named after George Napper. Okay. So when you got a domestic violence call and you determined there was probable cause, means furniture turned over, injuries to either party, anything like that, where there was probable cause for an arrest, you would call the communication and they would run this computer program, and the program would tell you whether to mediate, separate, or arrest. You didn't even get a choice. So one particular incident, I had these 2 doctors.
Yeah.
They were medical doctors.
Really?
And they had been fighting.
Yeah.
Stuff was turned over, papers everywhere, and they'd scratched each other's faces and pushed each other. And so I said, okay, well, this is a perfect thing to call the computer. So I'm thinking he'll probably say mediate. There's 2 doctors, they'll probably be all right.
Yeah.
Nope, arrest. So I had to arrest them both. I'm like, I'm arresting these 2 doctors. They're supposed to be in the hospital the next day. But
yeah.
Nope, too bad. They're handcuffed going to jail.
Was it 2 guys or?
No, it was a guy and a girl.
Oh,
they were both surgeons.
Oh, wow.
So I locked them both up based on this computer program. I was like, normally I probably would have just mediated and made one of them leave.
Yeah.
But you didn't get a choice.
Yeah.
They told you lock them up.
Damn.
So I put them in jail. And the judge was like, these 2 guys are surgeons at Grady.
Yeah.
Going to jail? Yep. Computer said lock them up. We got to lock them up, Judge.
That AI said
so they gave them both a fine and they put them in the program, and I never heard anything from it.
Okay.
But those are some of the things you run into. I was in the National Guard, so I had to leave for training. once a month, once a year, I'd do my 2-week.
So, like, you were in the National Guard while you were a police officer?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I had to go 1 week in a month. I had to go off to training.
Yeah.
And this particular year was 1988, the DNC. You know what that is?
No.
Democratic National Convention.
Okay.
So every officer was activated. It was a big deal. They had us on 12-hour shifts, somewhere in the Olympics. So this is my last night on before I'm leaving for active duty.
Yeah.
So I get a domestic violence call, and this girl's complaining my baby daddy cheated on me. I'm upset and everything. You know, I want him out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, where's the lease? You know, I can't just throw the guy out if he's been living here. You got to do an eviction, this kind of thing. She said, I want him out. I want him out of my house. I said, well, you know, I can't just throw him out. You got to do an eviction. So she said, he's getting out one way or the other. And she grabs a butcher knife and runs and just right in the back.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh my goodness. There's no way I could have stopped her. She was 10 feet away.
Damn, she crazy.
So anyways, I'm like, oh my gosh. I said, I got a 51. That's a stabbing.
Yeah.
And she just surrenders.
Damn.
So I handcuff her and charge her with aggravated assault. And then I'm like, I laid the guy down and I called the paramedics. Well, you can't pull the knife out because if you do,
just start bleeding all over the place.
Well, not only that, if it hit the heart or if you pull it a different direction, it could nick the heart and he's going to die that quick.
Yeah.
So what happens is they got to use duct tape to tape the knife up to stabilize it. And they use blocks to make sure the knife doesn't move. Because if it does, it could nick something and kill him. So they had to do all that and then put him on a gurney and get him out of there to the hospital. Yeah. And so he survived. And he goes, I don't want to prosecute. So she gets nothing.
Damn.
Nothing.
That's crazy.
So I'm like, well, you know, you don't want to prosecute. Mm-mm. Nope. So they dismiss all charges. He's back out. Me and you pick up the tab for the hospital bill.
Damn.
Mm-hmm. That's the kind of stuff you see. You're like, oh, man. I had a similar incident where these two guys were at the Blue Flame. Mm-hmm. You know what that is?
Is it like a club?
Adult Entertainment Club.
Oh, yeah.
Black
table.
Adult Entertainment Club.
Yeah.
So it's a white guy and a black guy. They work together.
Yeah.
And they got drunk and they get in a fight. And the black guy's losing the fight. So he pulls out a razor blade and does this. And the guy looked like he had cuts about 1 inch deep, like 10 of them on his back. So I got him on the ground and he's got cuts all in him.
Got Freddy Cougared.
That's right. I'm like, don't move, man. Just lay there. Oh, I'm hurting. He leans up and it looks like fish fillets.
Wow.
Chunks of fish fillets on his back, chunks of meat. And so he had the next morning, he comes to court and he's like, his whole back is a bandage. And it took 9 hours for them to stitch him up.
Wow.
And he goes, I love the guy. I don't want to prosecute. So they drop the charges on the guy. They walk out of court together.
Hey, it's a homeboy. Hey, he knew
wow.
That. Wow. That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
So, let's see. I wanted to ask you. So, how was it like the beginning of you being a cop? What got you interested in being a cop in the first place?
Well, it kind of was like,
let's start with that.
I was an MP in the Army National Guard, and it was kind of a smooth transition. All the guys in my Army unit were already Atlanta police officers.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm like, hey, I want to do that. And they're like, hey, man, well, you know all of us. We're on the Atlanta Police Department. Just go down there and put your application in. And, I mean, it was like smooth.
Yeah.
You know, it was just a smooth transition. I mean, I went from, right in the door, and the next thing I know, I'm like going to the academy.
Yeah.
Like a week later, boom. And I was in the academy, and 6 months later, you're graduating, and you do field training first. You do 10 weeks.
Did you get the Tase behind your back?
That's fairly new technology.
Yeah.
All we had was a nightstick and a gun. We didn't have any pepper spray.
Because
we didn't have a taser, none of that. That's fairly recent. That came in like 2016.
Because I see videos like when like before like police officers become like police officers, they get like tased in the back and stuff.
Yeah, well, what they do, they don't do that like
they don't
that.
Do that
what they do is they lay the taser on the ground.
Yeah.
Okay, and they take the two nodes.
Yeah.
And they hook it to the back of your leg.
Yeah.
And then to your waist.
Yeah.
Okay, and they put you on your knees, and one officer holds this arm and one arm this arm.
Yeah.
And they hit it for 1 second.
Yeah.
Okay, a taser is 5 seconds.
Yeah.
So for 1 second, it locks up everything in your body, and you just ease down, and it is extremely painful. It is more painful than anything that you have ever experienced. Worse than anything. And it's only 1 second.
Really?
So you got them brave cops to say, I ain't so bad, I'll do the whole 5 seconds.
Yeah.
And you hit that button, and it sounds like this. For 5 seconds, and that charge, 50,000 volts, is going through your body. And basically, it locks up everything. And you see them, they just go, boom.
Man, I saw a video of like some crackhead. They get tased. They don't feel that, man. They're like.
Well, a lot of people have high pain tolerance. Yeah. Is what they call it. So you could put the taser on some of these people, and it doesn't affect them like normal people.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting is that, and I've watched a bunch of videos on the guys that are real muscly.
Yeah.
It has absolutely, it will mess them up. I
Really?
mean, they're down on the ground flopping like a fish. Then you have the real skinny guys.
Yeah.
And they'll take a thing and rip the nodes right out of their body.
Yeah, man. Like, those are the type of videos I've seen. I'm like, what the hell?
What? Yeah. You got the big muscle guys, and they're on the ground flopping like a fish.
Yeah.
And you got these crackheads, and they go rip the cord right out.
And stuff, man.
Well, sometimes it malfunctions.
Yeah.
So it's not always effective operation. Now, what the taser has is you get 2 shots.
Yeah.
Those are the ones I had. There's different ones now. Some of them have more. And they have what they call a drive stun. So you can take the side button and you can actually put that taser on their body. Mm-hmm. And once it connects, well, you're done. It's going to put you down. You're done. And we used to have a nickname for it.
Oh, really?
Okay, when it first came out, we called it Georgia Power. So only a few officers had the taser.
Yeah, that Georgia Power. On
this is like 2015, I think, 15, 16, somewhere. That so if you had somebody that was fighting or whatever, and that taser was likely to be needed, we would call the taser officer over.
Really?
So you would hear the talk around going, "Hey, who's got Georgia Power?" And they were like, "I have Georgia Power. Can you get over here?" So you got somebody wanting to fight, or the person's, uncooperative.
Yeah.
Then he's likely to be, getting a charge.
Yeah, he's ready to get that Georgia Power.
Get that Georgia Power on him. Because the thing of it is, what's so great about the taser is, you hear about officers being in fights all the time. The taser prevents injury to the officer and the suspect, because all it does is shock them.
Yeah.
So if you can prevent an injury to the officer and the suspect, what a great tool.
Yeah.
We went from pepper spray to the asbaton, which is nothing more than extendable baton.
Yeah.
Metal. I mean, you hit somebody with that thing, you're going to break some bones.
Really?
You're going to do some serious injury.
Damn.
You got a guy wanting to fight, and you hit him in the knee, and the leg, and the arm. It's breaking bones.
Yeah, man, you're giving that
you're
silver
putting
movement
some serious
right
injury on the guy. You hit him with that taser, and all they do is go to the ground and gyrate.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, you got them cuffed, and they're like, okay, it's over. Now, if you're, you got to be real careful, because every time you hit that button, it shoots another 5-second charge through it.
Oh, really?
So if you got an officer that's just brutal, he might send a few charges to you, and they warn you about that. That could be a criminal charge if you use that as punishment.
Really?
Officers are not, once you got the handcuffs on somebody, all force is supposed to stop.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, some officers, feel like they got the root end of the deal. They'll hit that thing again. Well, here's the great thing about it. Those tasers have video cameras on them.
Really? Really?
And it's Wi-Fi.
What the hell?
So, right. So,
yeah.
When you get back to the precinct, all that video uploads to the mainframe,
Yeah.
and the sergeants have to do a force report.
Okay.
So that we have to go watch the video.
Yeah.
And if we see something out of character, we're required as supervisors,
Yeah.
while we do our force report, to document that, to go through the chain of command, to either sign off to approve it or take appropriate action for excessive force.
I did not know that.
You can really get yourself in trouble if you abused your suspect.
Yeah. I did not know that. The tasers had cameras inside of them and stuff. That is...
Yep, built right HD and sound.
Damn. That is
so,
crazy.
So, you know, what happens is, when the officer gets ready to handcuff, he lays the taser down so that it can keep videotaping the perp while he handcuffs him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And then you can't even get the nodes out.
Yeah.
You have to call a paramedic because those things are fish hooks. When they go in, you can't get them out.
Damn.
They have to use pliers to yank them out.
Damn.
And the EMS technician has to do it.
Yeah.
Because you have to bag those things up. That's evidence.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah.
Wow. I did not know that. That's cool.
Right.
But going back, so you said you got your buddies were in the Atlanta Police Department, so you decided to join in and stuff.
The guys in the Army, National Guard with me, were on the Atlanta Police Department.
Yeah.
Yes. And so those were the reasons I joined in, and you know, so it kind of was an easy fit from going to the MPs, the 190th MP company, onto the Atlanta Police Department.
Okay.
Yes.
And how do you think, like, because I know you said you served from 81, right?
86.
86.
To 2017.
2017.
30 years.
How have things like changed since the beginning?
Oh my goodness.
And all the way to the end of your career.
The technology is much better. The safety is much better.
Mm-hmm.
The policy is much better. When I came on, they had one-man cars, which they still do that, but it's a little different in that usually when you have sound supervisors, they send multiple units to make sure the officer's safety takes priority. For instance, when I came on, we had a force continuum, which means officer presence, nightstick, come-alongs, pepper spray, deadly force.
Yeah.
Okay. They took that and threw it out the window. You leave it up to the officer to determine what he needs to affect the arrest.
Yeah.
So that's one change that's a big deal.
Yeah.
The other thing is that back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, if you had a perpetrator, a known felon, run from the police would just shoot him in the back.
Really?
Kill him dead.
Damn. That is
you
brutal.
Can't do that.
No, man, no.
No. See, a judge in Tennessee reviewed that case and said, well, you can't do that. What happened is, and I'm not going to go into the statute, but what happened is the Supreme Court ruled that you could not shoot a fleeing felon.
Yeah.
A 12-year-old kid burglarized a house, stole a purse. So the police caught the perpetrator, and while he was running, I guess the police officer physically couldn't catch him or something. So the kid climbed a fence, had the purse still. Police officer shot him in the back.
Damn.
Killed him. So the Supreme Court ruled, well, you can't do that. You got to run them down and catch them. That changed that type of policing. But what happened is perpetrators were turning around and killing police.
Yeah.
So they changed it and said, if you have a forcible felony where the suspect is armed and the officer is in pursuit, then you don't need to do any more chasing. You can effect the arrest with a seizure of deadly force. For instance, if a perpetrator robs a bank and you get the call to the bank and the perpetrator comes out of the bank with the gun and the money, and you command him, drop the weapon, and he ignores your commands and takes off running, you can shoot the perpetrator in the back. That wasn't what I was trained when I came on.
Yeah.
So those are some of the changes. For instance, we really had great training, and it saved a lot of people from being shot where they normally would be in some agencies. We had a process that we went by what's called ability, opportunity, and jeopardy. And they use that phrase before deploying deadly force. So in other words, the perpetrator had to have the ability, opportunity, and you or some other person needed to be in jeopardy of death or great bodily harm before you use deadly force.
Yeah.
Good policy? Sometimes. But that policy was more advantageous to the perpetrator than the police officer.
Okay.
I guess the way the police department looked at it at the time is that a police officer's life was less than that of a citizen.
Yeah.
But you're not using deadly force against a citizen. You would be using deadly force against a criminal.
Yeah.
So that's where my thinking today is in conflict with the thinking of how the policy went into effect then. And it probably got police officers killed.
Yeah.
Because it implores you to hesitate. And hesitation is deadly. If you hesitate in a shooting position, then you surrender your surprise to the offender.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do that, you're at a disadvantage. And police need to win every situation.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not out there hunting citizens. We're hunting criminals. And we want criminals to be put in a courtroom so that they can receive justice. Okay? If you have a police officer that is abusing his authority, it's going to be very apparent.
Yeah.
In short order. You're going to have some dead people. And usually when a police officer is in a situation where he uses deadly force and the suspect dies, he's usually not put back on the street. That usually puts him in a situation where he's never put in that situation again.
Yeah.
In most agencies. You know, usually when an Atlanta police officer was in a shooting, they moved him to a specialized unit, and he was probably never put in that situation again.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're going to have a bunch of dead people.
Yeah.
That is not happening.
Not happening.
Right.
So.
But they call it now a life in danger and attack. If you have a life in danger and attack, you don't have ability to do in jeopardy. You can stop the threat. And after 9/11 and the terrorism happening around the country, at the police academy, you used to qualify 50 rounds in this big, huge target.
Yeah.
You know, you get 80% in there, you pass. Well, that's now changed. You have a lot smaller target, and then you have to do headshots.
Really?
Well, who does headshots? Well, police now. Because why? Because of terrorism.
Yeah.
If you have a suspect, a terrorist suspect, and he has a bomb, and he has a thumb-activated device to detonate a bomb or a suicide vest, how do you stop it?
Headshots, man.
That's it.
Yeah.
And it's not called killing the perpetrator. It's called stopping the threat. See, they use these words to make it more acceptable. But we know what it is. It's killing the fool.
Yeah.
You know? So the training went from shooting this big old target to shooting a smaller target and incorporating headshots in the name of stopping a terrorist from detonating a suicide vest or a bomb or something like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know about other states, but Georgia police are now trained in that. You know, that if you have a suspect who is going to possibly detonate a bomb, well, you stop the threat by doing a headshot.
Yeah.
And you practice. And you shoot a 30-round course. The new officers have to qualify twice a year. So new police officers qualify twice a year. Regular police officers that came on before the last only qualify once a year. Mm-hmm. And you have to do 24 hours of training every year.
Wow.
To keep your certification. Retired officers, we still have to qualify.
Yeah.
Just like new guys. We have to do the annual qualification course if we want to have our a permit to carry a firearm.
Yeah.
Because in 2003, federal law says you can carry a firearm if you're retired, if you qualify under the state guidelines.
Yeah.
So, yep.
It's a once a year thing.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
All right. And so you being in the police department, like, in your rookie year, like, is there any like things you've seen or that's just like always like haunt you and stuff? Because I know a lot of police officers have like that one case they've seen that just always sticks with them and stuff. And I know sometimes it's like really hard to talk about that.
There is one particular thing that haunted me, and see, this dives deep into politics, but it's going to be quite revealing. You know, right now we've got Robert F. Kennedy is being confirmed as the HHS secretary in Washington. Most people think, well, that doesn't affect their lives. He's this, he's that, he's anti-vax, he's anti-this. Well, I came across a situation where it was a Signal 48, which is a dead person.
Yeah.
And the dead person was a 12-year-old child.
Yeah.
And this child was disabled from a reaction to a polio vaccine. And he was bedridden for the rest of his life, which was only 12 years.
Wow.
And this kid weighed probably 40 pounds.
Damn.
When they lifted him out of bed. And what was so unbelievably shocking to me was when they lifted this child out of the bed, all of his bodily fluids exited onto the bed, and it was black. And that image seared into my brain, and I will never forget it. And it sent chills down my spine that here I was witnessing a dead child who died from a reaction to a polio vaccine that we all took.
Yeah.
You know, when we were a kid, we didn't know that there were some instances where it left someone bedridden the rest of their life. We never heard these stories.
Yeah.
You know, we always heard, well, it's safe, take it. But that particular situation was one of those statistical situations where his body did not accept it, and it crippled him for his short 12-year lifespan.
Damn.
So does that renew your thoughts about vaccines? It made me wake up about it, going, wait a minute. You know, I was always told these things were safe. You know, do I want to risk my child going through this?
Oh, no.
What about all these other people that took the polio vaccine? They're supposed to be safe. I mean, what's the alternative? Catching polio? Well, I thought we had eradicated it.
Yeah.
What do you need the vaccine if it's not around? You know, but this was one of those incidents where it sears a spot on your brain. You never forget it, and it brings you into modern day politics with these vaccines. What's right? What's wrong?
Yeah.
You know, he's anti-vax. I don't know if he is or isn't, but I like what he says about, hey, we need to make sure the science is accurate.
Yeah, that is 100%
before we start
true.
Giving people vaccines.
Yeah, I agree with that. Cause,
you know?
Yeah, because there's things that, you know, like what's that big pharmaceutical company starts with a P, Pfizer.
Yeah, Pfizer is one of them.
Yeah, when Pfizer was pushing all those COVID vaccines
That's
and stuff.
That's correct.
Man.
You know, and then look at what the vaccine did. Was it effective? Absolutely not. You still got COVID even though you got the vaccine.
Yeah.
And did the vaccine hurt or harm? You know, then they wanted to force you to take it if you were in the military and the police department and the fire department and you got nurses and doctors, they're forcing them. You know, they wouldn't let doctors make the decision.
Yeah.
You know, you were like forced to do it. To me, that is suspicious.
Yeah, that's crazy because I remember the minute it just barely came out and there wasn't any trials or anything. They got a couple people.
Well, it was one of those emergency things because they wanted to protect you. So there, the government is rushing this thing to market, and you had Pfizer and these other companies, Johnson and Johnson, making millions of dollars, right? You know, and so it's interesting how, you know, these little things that you encounter have ramifications that are, you know, way beyond your control.
Yeah.
And I would have never known about that situation unless I saw it with my own two eyes.
Yeah.
You know, here this kid was, and I mean, you know, they weren't in a poor section of Atlanta, but it wasn't prominent either.
Yeah.
So I don't know what their circumstances were, but you know, his parents were grieving, and you don't really know what to say. You know, it's like, you know, they made a mistake. I can only assume that, you know, they were compensated some kind of way from the failure of the vaccine. I know that there's, you know, lawyers out there that take those cases that, you know, if you're a victim of a failed vaccine, that, you know, you're due some type of compensation.
Yeah.
And they have a certain calculated number of failures that they anticipate. But, you know, until it touches your family, you're not going to know. And to me, it was the most heartbreaking thing I'd ever seen.
Yeah, I bet.
It just breaks your heart. And, you know, when, I don't know how most people are, but when you have injured children, that's my weak spot. I mean, I don't want to see kids hurt, you know. So, you know, lucky for me, I didn't handle too many accidents or anything like that where there were major injuries, death and things like that.
Do you think that takes like a special type of individual to do those type of things? Like, is there like a certain process that goes involved handling?
Well, in certain units, I think so. You know, when you work hit and run, you need to have that mindset. See, the hit and run unit handles all vehicles where a person is deceased. So you have to have that certain mindset. See, I never wanted to work homicide unit. I didn't want it on my conscience as some murderer beat the rap. You know, I wasn't concerned. I didn't want to work person crimes. See, as a detective, you have two separate kind of crimes, really. Yeah. When you have crimes against person, which means robbery, rape. You know, you have your women, crimes against women and children. Then you have aggravated assault.
Yeah.
Assaults is crimes against person. Then you have property crimes. You have stolen cars, you have burglary, you have larceny. Well, look, if somebody steals a car, he gets away, so what? He could go steal another car, you get him again.
Yeah.
Well, that was, plus being in the automotive industry, I kind of like learning about vehicles. Yeah. And so I leaned toward going after car thieves. Yeah. And it kind of came natural. Little backstory. Let me change course a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead.
When I was a senior in high school, I worked at a department store named Richway. Okay. Well, Richway was like the discount side of Rich's department stores. Yeah. Okay, Rich's was a well-known department store in America, and they had different levels. I mean, matter of fact, the Federal Building downtown is the old Rich's store. Mm-hmm. So I worked at Richway as a job while I was in high school. And my dad let me drive his pickup truck. That was my vehicle. I drove back and forth to school. It was a 1970 Ford pickup long bed. Dang. It was a really cool truck. Yeah. You know, I kept it really nice. I had nice wheels on it. You know, I had nice radio in it and stuff and everything. My truck. So I'm working one evening, and I'm still in high school. This is like February of '83. And one of the guys working in there named Barry Pierce said, "Hey, man, somebody just drove off of your truck." I said, "Shut up." He said, No, somebody just drove off a truck. I said, "Ain't no way." So I ran to the fence in the garden shop. Yeah. Matter of fact, the store's still there. It's a Home Depot right there at the corner, Highway 29 and Jimmy Carter. Yeah. That store's still there. So I look out and I'm like, I parked right there. Where's my vehicle? So I see Barry walking out to his car. He had a 1972 Chevrolet Monte Carlo. It was yellow with the brown leather top over the back. You know, it was a little half vinyl top. And so the back door was open, and I see the guy down at the red light turning left. Well, my dad had a second set of keys to the truck. I'm thinking he's borrowing it, but I live that way. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So I ran to the car. I said, "Come on, Barry, let's go get my truck back." He says, "Shut up." I said, "No, man, there he goes right there." And he's driving down Jimmy Carter Boulevard heading north. He goes, "Okay." So we get in the car, and we pull out. We catch up with the guy. And down at the bottom of the hills, a road called Norcross Tucker Road.
Yeah.
So I said, "Do you got a weapon in here or something?" He had this lock blade knife. It was about this long. So I pulled out the lock blade knife, and I said, "Well, I'm going to, get my truck back." So the passenger window was open, and I stuck my arm through there with that knife, and I tried to stick him with it.
Yeah.
And he says, "I'm just borrowing it." And I said, "Get out of my truck. Get out of my truck." So he floored the truck with my arm in the window.
Oh, nah.
So I'm going down Jimmy Carter Boulevard. I'm hanging on the side of my pickup truck. And I'm thinking, oh, my goodness, this is stupid. So I put my feet down like they do in the rodeo.
Yeah.
And it kicked my feet up on the back of the truck bed, and I slid into the back of the truck.
Yeah.
So I'm in the back of the truck. Barry's following us. I said, "Stay with us." So we're going down Jimmy Carter Boulevard, and we're coming up to where 85 is. And I'm leaning out the side of the truck. I'm like, "Hey, can y'all call the police?" They're like, "Sit down, kid. You're going to fall out."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Call the police." This guy's still in the truck. He's driving the truck.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, oh, my gosh, what do I do? So we get to the intersection of Jimmy Carter and 85. We're about to turn 85 south, get on the freeway.
Yeah.
And two guys come running up the hill with guns drawn. And they pull the gun on the guy, said, "Get out of the truck. Stop the truck." So they get him out of the truck. And he's like, "I don't know who this kid is. This is my truck." And so I said, "It's not his truck. It's my dad's truck. And he's using a dent puller." Mm-hmm. And so he had busted the tumbler out of the truck, and it was laying on the floor. And he was sticking a screwdriver in there to crank it.
Yeah.
So they got him handcuffed, and they're walking him down the hill. They said, "Hey, take your truck and bring it around. There's a precinct right there."
Yeah.
Gwinnett County PD. And I said, "Okay." So I drove the truck. I went the wrong way on a one-way, and there's another police officer coming that way. He's honking the horn. "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I don't know." He told me to bring the truck down to the precinct. They go, "You're supposed to go around that way, blah, blah, blah." He said, "Well, let me turn around and get you down there." So I get down there, and they get me in the precinct and everything, and they said, "You need to call your mom and dad and get them up here." So I said, "Okay." So I called my mom and dad. This is back when you have landline.
Yeah.
So I called my mom, and I said, "Mom," I said, "I'm at the police station, but I'm not in any trouble. I need you and Dad to get up here now." And I could hear my mom go, "Oh my gosh, Nelson, Richie's at the police station and we need to go right now." I'm like, "Oh, I don't want him to have a heart attack or something."
Yeah.
So they get up there, and the detective explains to them that, they've had a lot of car thefts in Gwinnett, and they think this is the ringleader.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
Because, see, back then, if you had a 1970 vehicle and you took it to Alabama and threw the tag off, you could auction it. It's yours.
Really?
Yeah, because
Wow.
they didn't recognize Georgia titles.
Wow.
So I caught this guy. He got 2 years in jail. I went to the trial and everything. So the Gwinnett Daily News was the paper of the day, and I was on the front page. And so the principal at my high school read that in the morning announcements. And I was like, the big cheese in the high school for a few days,
Wow, that's so cool, man.
Yep. So that kind of made me lean toward, going after car thieves.
Yeah.
And, I've locked up hundreds of car thieves, hundreds of them. I actually wrote the policy on what they call DLA. That's a classification of the FBI whereby the car wasn't stolen, it was loaned out. Mm-hmm. So that was one of the reasons why Hertz agreed to pick me, because I actually wrote the policy for the Atlanta Police Department on what they call driving without consent.
Yeah.
For instance, if you loan your car out to your friend and he don't bring it back, can you call the police and say, "Get my car back"? No.
Damn.
Because you gave him the car.
Yeah.
I don't know what your contract was with him. Mm-hmm. What you have to do is you have to sign an affidavit saying you're going to prosecute, and you have to do a warrant application. Say you're going to prosecute. And if you drop it, they make you pay for the court costs.
Really?
Right. And I'll ask you a question. Okay, if this person resists and we use deadly force to recover your property, do you have a problem with that? If you say, no, I don't want to hurt, I just want my car back, well, then the police department is not your venue. you need to hire a repo agent at your expense, and they can repo your car. That's how that works.
Damn.
Now, a rental car company is a little bit different. So if Hertz and Budget and all them rent a car, and you say, I'm renting it for a week, and you don't bring it back, what does the rental car company do? Do they call the police and say, I want to report the car stolen?
Nah, they call that bounty hunters or whatever. The
Well,
guys.
sort of. It can be a police issue, but they
Yeah.
have to do the same thing as a citizen. They have to do a warrant application, and they have to do an affidavit, and then the police can put the car on what they call NCIC. That's a National Crime Information Center, whereby it is called a hit.
Yeah.
Okay? And me as a police officer, I pull up, run a tag, and the car come back stolen. Well, it tells who the victim is and who the agency is, and then I can pursue that suspect and charge him with a crime. And then as soon as I get the car in custody and the suspect, I have to do a teletype to the agency telling them who the individual is, what the charges is, where the property is, so they can notify the owner to get the property back, the vehicle. So that's how that works.
And so I remember when I first shot out the video with you, you were talking about that one guy with the car dealership and stuff. You caught him.
Yes, the NW Auto sales.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know if you can tell that story.
I can tell you that. That is probably one of the premier cases of my career because it was such a big deal. I mean, when you have a car dealer that is basically laundering the vehicle for drug dealers, as well as laundering the monies owed to banks. This guy had developed such a reputation that car dealers that were having some issues getting a clear title would actually go to him, and he would basically skirt all the protections in the system and get them a title or whatever they needed. And he didn't realize by being so sloppy that he was defrauding certain people of their property. For example, if you were in Alabama and you bought a car at an auction and you didn't know that the car was stolen in Georgia and the car was a leased vehicle, but you got a clear title on it, you basically, the true owner of that vehicle is the lease company that you obtained a improper title from. And that particular incident happened. I had a gentleman come to my office as an investigator. He said, my son spent his life savings buying this Jeep Cherokee, and when he went to get the title, the vehicle was shown stolen out of Georgia, and the police took the vehicle. I said, okay. And they said that the title was obtained through NW Auto Sales.
Yeah.
I said, I'm familiar with it. I said, the good thing is that dealer's bonded. So if he's bonded, that you can take legal action against the company, and hopefully you can recover your son's loss. I said, but in the meantime, give me the information on the vehicle and let me see if I have anything. Well, I'd done a search warrant on the business a year earlier, and I looked through my records, and sure enough, I found the application for the title in my records that I'd seized.
Yeah.
And I said, well, here's the Jeep right here. He took it down to Georgia and forged the bank and the lease owner, and he did a T4 lien release and wiped the payment to the bank off of it.
Yeah.
And got a clear title, and then gave it to the guy who took it to Alabama and auctioned it to your son. So I found the criminal records. And I said, so there's, nothing that we can do at this point, but you can certainly take action against the bond company that gave him a bond. Now, what he was doing was, I worked as an investigator in what they call asset forfeiture. What I used to do is I used to seize houses that were used as drug havens, both sales and crack houses and things like this.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of notices you got to go through. You just can't go to court and seize a house. You have to do search warrants on it. You got to notify the owner. You got to give them an opportunity to clean it up. And after all that's done, and you still get drugs there, then you can file a federal case against it, and you're actually suing the property. And then they have a chance to come in with their lawyers and prevent that seizure. After doing that, I did money, jewelry, and vehicles.
Yeah.
So what I learned by doing forfeiture of automotive vehicles, in order to have your vehicle seized by the government, you have to have either sold drugs out of your car or transported a certain amount of drugs, and you have to have proper notice. In other words, if you had, let's just say, a high-end car, let's just go with a Lexus. If you own a Lexus and you owed $55,000 on it, okay, and you're a drug dealer and you just got popped with a kilo of transporting drugs.
Yeah.
Well, I get the case and I look, you got a kilo, and then I do the lien on it. So the lien's, okay, that's money owed to the bank, and then you're the owner of this Lexus. Can the government seize that car? It's got money owed on it.
Yeah.
Can the government, yes or no?
I'll say yeah.
Okay, they can, but we have to satisfy that lien. So we're going to pay $55,000 for a Lexus,
Obviously
so we
not.
can seize it? No. Mm-mm. So what happens is I have to call the lien holder and say, look, this car's been used in a crime. There's money owed on it. You come get the car and you sell it, and you give the drug dealer the difference, but he can't get the car back. And what they do is they come in and get the car and they sign a document called a hold harmless indemnity agreement. So they sign that document, they get the car, they can sell it to somebody else in public, and then they get their money for the money owed on the car, and any leftover goes back to that guy.
Yeah.
We don't try to seize the difference.
Yeah.
Not worth it.
And like, what would happen? Like, I seen that there's like cases where like, where people are like in rental cars and they transport drugs to another state.
That's right.
And they get seized. So like, what will happen in that scenario? I'm just curious.
I was going to cover that next. Okay.
Yeah.
So you rent a car from Budget, and you transport 10 kilos of marijuana or cocaine or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And you get stopped, and the police impound the car and arrest you.
Yeah.
Should the rental car company lose their car? Did they know or should have known that this guy, what he was doing with the car?
But what if like,
they can't know.
Yeah.
So you can't take the car.
Yeah.
So what they do is they sign a hold harmless indemnity agreement. You give the rental car back to them. You say, if you rent to that guy again and we catch him again, you give us the car.
Yeah.
So they go, okay, that guy can't ever rent it from us again. We're done. So that's the trade-off.
Yeah, because I saw on a podcast that some people when they have like the cartel things over here, that they have like rental car places and stuff, and they purposely like put drugs underneath like someone that's like renting a car to go to some location. They have it over there and bring it back because the person's not aware that they have it and stuff.
That's right.
Yeah.
So we can't. The government cannot seize a car, a rental car, or anything like that. They
Wow, it's a loophole.
That's right. Well, it's not really a loophole. It's logical. Why would
Yeah.
the rental car? See, it's just like if your friend says, "Look, I need you to. I can't drive. I hurt my leg. Can you drive my car?"
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, my car doesn't have any keys because my tumbler's broke.
Yeah.
Okay, so he goes, "You got to use this screwdriver to crank the car."
Yeah.
So you get in that car and you're going to drive up to the BP to get him some gas and a Coke.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the police pull behind you, run the tag, and the car come back stolen.
Yeah.
And you're in there with a screwdriver, a busted steering column, and you're taking your buddy up there.
Yeah.
Your buddy takes off and runs.
Yeah.
What's the police going to do?
Take you in.
Well, here's the phrase they do ask. Well, what's your history? Have you ever been arrested in a stolen car before? Nope.
No.
Right. Okay. So that's plus for you.
Yeah.
Okay, but what's the negative? You got a busted steering column. You didn't know or should have known something was up.
Yeah.
You using a screwdriver to crank this car. Are you sure? That's why you got 12 of your peers going to make a determination of whether you walk free or not.
Damn.
You're going to trial.
Damn.
Ask yourself this question. Known or should have known? That is what every detective asks when they deal with a defendant.
Yeah.
They say, okay, I got this guy in custody. He has got no record of nothing. Did he know or should have known the car was stolen? Well, did you look at the registration on the car? Did you look at the tag receipt? Did you even check his driver's license? This your friend? How close do you know him? See what I mean?
Yeah. There's a lot of questions that go into it.
Right. So, think about it. Are you going to just blatantly get in a car with a busted steering column and use a screwdriver to crank it? You're going to say, this is some cheese junk. I ain't driving you nowhere.
Yeah.
That's your first response.
Yeah.
If you get in a car and it's suspicious, busted door lock, busted ignition, you need to say, something ain't quite right here.
Yeah.
And that should trigger your right and wrong mode to say, I'm not real sure here. Let me look at the tag receipt. Let me look at the registration and see if it's in your name or your parents' name or what have you.
Damn, like, what if I don't know. I mean, well, me. I probably be like, damn, bro. Like, I'm like, yo, bro, why is your shit busted? And they say, hey, bro, my car got fucked up. I probably.
Well, okay. Well, what can his answer be? His answer is going to be, yeah, it was stolen and I got it back. Okay. Well, let me just check your paperwork real quick. What's wrong with that? Let me see your insurance card and your registration.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you do that? That's the normal thing to do.
I don't know. I wouldn't.
A lot of teenagers get in trouble like that.
Yeah.
And do you want to ruin a kid with no record? Do you want to ruin his life, putting him in jail in a car whereby he thought everything was okay?
Yeah.
Now, what leads me to believe that you're not guilty of nothing?
Yeah.
You didn't run. That guy did. You stayed. Now, if you were guilty of something, wouldn't you have ran?
Oh, yeah, I would have ran.
Then you didn't run. I'm going, wait. Me, as a police officer, I'm going to say, this guy didn't run. He's going to tell me everything, and I'm pretty sure that he's not guilty of nothing. Now, am I going to put you down as a prime suspect? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to call your mom and dad and say, come get your kid. And I'm putting him in this report, and he got to come back and talk to me.
Yeah.
And I want to know where he got the car, who it was, and all this stuff. If you told me all that, why would I can turn you into a witness from a perpetrator.
Yeah.
Wouldn't I rather have the information and get the right guy than put you in jail, smear you because I'm too lazy to conduct a valid investigation?
And
and smear your life. That's what good cops do.
Yeah.
They don't put innocent people in jail. Okay? You're a witness. Is it going to be uncomfortable? Yeah, you don't want to be going to court telling on your buddy.
Yeah.
Too bad. He did it to you. And you got to suck it up and say, look, man, I hate, putting you through this, but daggone it, you should have told me.
Yeah.
I'm not taking this rap. And first thing you do is say, call your parents. Your parents get a lawyer. But that's what the lawyer's going to say. He's going to allow you to sit down with law enforcement and tell your story in order to mitigate whatever's coming your way.
Yeah.
That's why you never, ever think that you can talk your way out of something, because you cannot.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to talk to the police about a situation, you better have your attorney, because
Yeah.
you don't know what their intent is.
Yeah.
You don't know whether they've already got a preconceived notion about what they're going to do to you. You need to have a lawyer there. A lawyer is your voice.
Yeah.
When you go to court, you ain't got no voice. You better have your attorney there.
Yeah.
Make sure your rights are protected, because you don't know if you got a good cop or one that's lazy and he's just going to put a ticket on you and be done with it.
Yeah.
You never know. I would hope that cops look at it from a holistic way of saying, look, I'm not going to ruin somebody's life. I want to get to the truth rather than to just close the case. You don't know what you're going to be dealing with.
Yeah, that's true.
Hopefully, when I trained my detectives and the officers that work for me, I'm like, I was not concerned with stats, the number of cases, the number of arrests, all this stuff. I wanted the bad guy to be caught.
Yeah.
It was immaterial on whether you had no arrests or 10 arrests. Not a big deal to me. Your command's going to look, oh, that guy hadn't made an arrest in 6 months. Okay. Well, we get a call where there's an arrest, make him do it.
Yeah.
We can fix that. But that doesn't a good cop make. Okay. Just because you do 10 arrests or none. Could it be he's lazy and he don't want to do it? Well, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
there's always that bad egg here and there.
Well, it could be,
everywhere.
just I'm not trying to, fight anybody, put hands on anybody. You don't know what their reasoning is.
Yeah.
But, you want to, if your area is safe, you shouldn't have to worry about making arrests. Look, there's no crime in my area, Sarge. Why you won't lock somebody up? Valid point. And that's the idea.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
Yeah. Damn. All right.
Yep.
So let's see. So going back with the Grand Cherokee.
Right. Okay. So they filed suit against the dealership, and they got a judgment, and the bond company made him whole.
Yeah.
So he got his money back that he had lost at the auction for buying the stolen vehicle. Was the stolen vehicle? We never found it. I don't know where it was. But what he would do is, okay, if you were the drug dealer and the police stopped you and took your vehicle, and it's in the impound yard and you can't get it back, they would take their paperwork to his dealership, and he would manufacture a payment plan backwards.
Yeah.
Showing that you'd made all these payments, and then the drug dealer would give him their title, and so he would just hold on to the title. Therefore, he owned the car, and he showed it like he was making payments. So when we would get the vehicle in our unit for seizure, the vehicle's registered to him, and there's no lien. So the drug dealer owns the car outright, making the car forfeitable by the government. He would show up and say, no, he owns an exorbitant amount of money on the car, so you got to pay me the money if you want the car. Well, see, I used to work auto theft before I was a forfeiture agent. So one thing you learn as an auto theft detective, when a car, let's just say you illegally parked on Peachtree Street.
Yeah.
Okay? So you illegally parked, and the police see you're illegally parked, and they impound your car for illegal parking. Okay, you come out and you say, oh my gosh, my car's stolen because it's not in the parking spot. Okay, so you dial 911 and the police officer shows up, and he runs the car and it's not on the system as impounded or whatever, and he does a theft report. So you think you're a victim of a stolen car.
Yeah.
Well, the car's at the impound lot, and it's not a city wrecker, and they haven't notified the police department they got it impounded.
Yeah.
So it's some other unknown. This was private property that did your impound. You weren't on the city street. You forgot where you parked. You thought you was. Mm-hmm. So now we got you not knowing where you parked. The car is parked on private property. They impounded it. This lot doesn't work for the city, so they didn't do the required impound notification. So when the police department ran your car to see if it impounded, it didn't come up. Well, what is the law? Title 40 says when you get a car on your lot and you're a licensed impound location, you have to send a lien holder and the registered owner within 7 days of that car's location. So all of a sudden you get a letter in the mail that the car was impounded. So what do? You're going to call the police, you're going to go get your car at the impound, or you're going to call the police department and say, hey, my car's at this impound lot. If you do that, here's what's going to happen. Police department's going to go over to that impound lot and impound that car back to the city lot. And they're going to steal their impound fee.
Really?
Right.
Yeah.
And then we're going to find out where they impounded it from, and we're going to unfound your report because it really wasn't stolen.
Yeah.
It was illegally parked.
Yeah.
And we take that stat off. But that takes an investigation. Now, what normally should happen is the police should go to that lot, do a recovery report, show it there, and then take their impound report and turn that into a supplement to show where it was impounded from and show it was never stolen. And then we get that number back so that the stats don't show we get another stolen car for our FBI statistics. And then you can go pick up that car at that lot. And you don't have a city ticket on it for illegal parking because you weren't illegally parked. You were just parked in a private lot and you didn't pay the fee or whatever they impounded.
$20.
Yeah,
or
whatever.
Bucks,
the $3 or whatever they charge. So see, some of that can happen, and that's why it takes an auto theft investigator to figure it out. Back to my situation where I was talking about NW Auto Sales, what he would do is, so the drug dealer gets arrested and he's transporting dope, he would do this payment plan and then come up to the the forfeiture unit and say, I own this car. Well, he wants a hold harmless like a bank would get.
Yeah.
But what did he fail to do? When you are a financial institution, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and you loan money on a car, they're required to what they call perfect the lien within 20 days.
Yeah.
That means when they give you a loan on your car, you're going to say you're going to pay $200 a month on this car, and you let them keep the title, okay? And you're going to be paying them. Wells Fargo just can't sit on that title. They have to go down to the state and turn it in and say, hey, this guy owes me money on this car. Yeah. And the state, what they do, they put this label on the registration on NCIC, your registration, and then right below it, it's a lien holder information, Wells Fargo. So when a police officer runs your tag or an impound lot, it says this is a registered owner, this is the titled owner. The titled owner, Bank of America or Wells Fargo, okay? So they have to send a letter to you and the lien holder that car is right there.
Yeah.
So if you don't make your payment, they can go to that lot and repo the car that you didn't pay for.
Yeah.
Or, so when you got this car dealer that's saying he owes money on it, he hasn't gone to the state and perfected the lien, and it's not on the system. So me as a forfeiture agent, when I run the registration, there's no lien on it to Northwest Auto. So what does that tell me he's doing? It tells me that he's creating a lien to give the impression that there's money owed on the car. So what should I do as a forfeiture agent? Should I recognize the lien or just write it up to, well, he's just skirting the law by not getting his lien perfected. We got a guy transporting this amount of dope and he's been popped. What am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to seize the car or do a hold harmless and let this dealer have it back? What'd I do?
I don't know.
Well, all the other detectives had talked about him, saying he's always doing hold harmlesses.
Yeah.
And so when I come in there, none of them were auto theft investigators before, like I was.
Yeah.
I said, well, I'm not doing that anymore. Y'all been letting him get away with this stuff. I'm not doing it anymore. If he ain't perfected his lien, we're keeping the car. Okay? I don't care if it's a $50 car, we're keeping it. Okay? Y'all should have been doing it the right way and making him perfect his liens. He's not running his business properly. And this he can just chalk this up to a bad business decision. So he lost his mind and got all upset and went to my boss, Major Shannon, and made a complaint on me that I was violating the law, keeping his stuff. And so I get hauled down to my boss, and he goes, what do you got going on? I explained the whole thing. I said, Major, he's running a business. He's selling cars. And if he truly was selling this drug dealer the car, and this guy had been making payments, I said that he would have perfected his lien like every bank's supposed to do. He acted as a financial institution. We don't have to recognize it if he didn't do it in 20 days. Okay? That title is still in the name of the dope dealer, and so is the registration. He has nothing but a 5x7 note card with a payment plan. I said, I don't think that would hold up in court. He said, okay. And I said, Major, I got one more thing. I said, I have been watching this guy for 6 months. He goes down and gets registration on all his customers' cards, and he uses the same insurance card. So none of these people have insurance on the car. He's using the same number on every registration. I said, so he's committed a fraudulent act every single time. I said, I have probable cause to do a search warrant on that business. And if you will let me have the intelligence unit, I said, I need every one of them detectives to go with me tomorrow. And I'll have that warrant ready to go tonight. If you'll let me do it. He said, done. So the next morning I had 10 detectives go out there with me. And we hit that dealership and we took everything.
I arrest his ass, bro.
And I went through those documents one at a time, and I found all them stolen cars.
Damn.
And I went down to the state, and every one of them, I had to pull the title and registration on every one of them. He had actually done power of attorney for motor vehicle transactions and converted the vehicle from the owner to the thief, and basically wiped out any kind of situation where the car would have got on the system as stolen.
Yeah.
Some of them were on the system. He didn't know it, but he converted it while they wasn't on the system because they're not down running them at the state. He actually did T4 lien releases and wiped the money owed off of them from the bank and gave them to the drug dealers.
Yeah.
And the drug dealers would take the car and trade them in on another car. What he was doing was, once he would get the hold harmless and get the car back, he wouldn't give the car back to the drug dealer. He would take it to another dealership and trade it in on a similar vehicle and give them a different car back, which means, you know, they would pay him a couple $1,000s and they wouldn't lose their vehicle to the government for a forfeiture.
Yeah.
That's what he was doing.
Damn.
But I got a couple hundred cars that I found that he converted.
Wow.
And the weird thing is that I took the case to Fulton County and we were going to trial, and the prosecutor was worried because he felt like the judge was corrupt. A judge named Vincentetta Lane. She may still be on the bench, I don't know. But he says, we're going to lose. And he turned his resignation in and dead docketed the case and left.
Wow.
Resigned because he worried that we were going to lose. So here I was, I got a case dead docketed, and I got this car dealer I was trying to put in prison, and I got no prosecutor going to work on the case. So I prayed about it, started thinking about it, and I said, well, when he did his tags, oh yeah, one more thing. Lewis Bailey, who was the administrator for the tag office, had a heart attack the day before trial.
Oh, damn, man. That's crazy.
Yeah. So anyways, I'm thinking, what do I do? So when you take your tags down to the tag office and you're trying to convert ownership of a car, where else do you go?
I don't know.
You go to the state.
Oh, yeah, you go to the
Where's the state?
In the
title office located.
Yeah.
Clayton County.
Oh, okay.
So if you take those documents that you uttered fraudulently in Fulton and you go down to Henry Ford Avenue where the state title office is and you re-utter those documents, that is a separate and unique new crime. Mm-hmm. So I took my entire case file to Clayton County and I said, look, I need y'all to look at this. And they had hired a brand new prosecutor named Stacy Guest. Mm-hmm. I said, can I show you my case? She says, yes. So I laid the whole thing out. She says, we just convened a grand jury. Would you like to talk to them? I'm like, yes. And they gave me a true bill on every one of those stolen cars. And we went to trial on him.
Yeah.
And he got 10 years.
Damn. Mm-hmm. 10 years in prison for...
And he was a convicted armed robbery. Should have never been a dealer.
Wow.
So they didn't check at the state level when they issued him his motor vehicle license.
And what year was this in?
99.
99?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah, that was a while ago. That was like, what, more than...
25 years ago.
25 years ago, almost 30 years ago. Wow. Yeah. Wow.
Yep.
So, all right, let me ask you another question. What did you think about the crime that's going on right now in Atlanta compared to like in your early days? In like in the middle of your career and stuff.
You mean, is it worse?
Worse.
As bad?
Yeah, or bad. What do you think?
To tell you the truth, I think it's worse.
Really?
Oh yeah, I think it's a lot worse because, see, what happens is they're not really prosecuting anybody.
Yeah.
The Fulton County DA's office is the most corrupt prosecutor in the state of Georgia. You got this woman down there named Fannie Willis, and what she does is, she does what they call this process called dead docket. Mm-hmm. So if you're arrested for a felony, then what she does is she processes you through the jail and then she sets the case aside. and then they let you out of jail. So they kind of hold that arrest over your head, and they wait till you have 8, 10, 12, 15 arrests, and then they take all of them and put them together and put you on trial. Right.
That's
so you
so
have to
stupid.
have 10 or 15 arrests before they actually take you to trial.
Damn.
Right. So that's why all these criminals are running loose in Atlanta. And they just keep committing crimes and getting rearrested.
Yeah, I did not know that.
Right.
That's the reason.
Yep.
So she's just waiting for them to get 18 or something and just in
20, 25 arrests, and then they put you on trial.
Wow.
And usually when they get you in that, they'll get you to accept, okay, we're going to do what they do, a 2 and 2. So we're going to do a 2 years in jail and 5 years probation. And you'll do 6 months and you're out.
Yeah.
So they go into the state prison system and do 6 months and they're on parole and they're on 8 years probation. And then the probation officer has to monitor them.
Yeah.
So they ain't really spending much time in jail. 6 months at best.
And when do you think...
and you get credit for time served in the county jail.
Oh, yeah. I heard about that.
Right.
They get
so
time.
You might do a month and you're back out.
Yeah. And when do you think there was a shift of like crime getting worse here in Atlanta?
A shift? It was probably around... See, it was in between when Lewis Slayton left for Paul Howard.
Who's Lieutenant Slayton?
He was the district attorney for years when I came on.
Yeah.
So he was the district attorney. He determines who gets prosecuted. So everybody got prosecuted. You lock them up, they went. So when Paul Howard came in there, he changed the process and started doing these dead dockets.
Yeah.
And letting people out until you got a bunch of cases, and then they would put you on trial. So he was bad. And then after he got beat by Fannie Willis, it was like him on steroids. She didn't put nobody in jail. Unless you murdered somebody, you're out. Mm-hmm. They didn't want to put nobody in jail. They let everybody go.
Wow.
So, and drugs, she didn't do any drug case.
Really?
Zero. Drug case, gone. You did docket, automatic. So no drug dealers went to jail. And unless you murdered somebody, you didn't. She spent all her time putting murders in jail and all the other ones, burglars, armed robbers. If you're a rapist, you went to jail. But for the most part, unless it was a serious crime, murder or armed robbery, well, they'd set it aside. Mm-hmm. Burglars set it aside. They wait till you get 10 or 15 burglaries arrests. And then, what about the ones you got away with? They ain't mad at them because they don't know you did it.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
All right. And what type of organized crime do you think we have in Atlanta and stuff going on there? Like what type of organized crime is there?
Those are federal offenses, and we have enormous child trafficking.
Really?
Oh, it is unbelievably bad. If people knew, they would be screaming from the rooftops. Child trafficking is off the chain.
In Atlanta?
It is horrible. Yes. Yep.
Like what type of like who do you think is organizing all that stuff and what's
the drug cartels?
The drug cartels.
Mm-hmm. These kids are being used as sex objects and things of this nature. Mm-hmm. A lot of them are Chinese nationals, and they're used in these massage parlors up and down Cheshire Bridge.
Yeah.
You probably have some here in Gainesville.
Yeah.
I don't know for sure. I'm just speculating, but a lot of the times we would bust them and they would run away.
Really?
These young ladies that were in the parlors they had like escape hatches where they would run away and you couldn't catch them. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And when you catch them, they're scared. They don't want to testify.
What about because I've known that Atlanta's the number one capital of human trafficking throughout the United States.
That's right.
And I remember when I was researching to it, I guess it's more individually, with people when things happen like that, or no?
What now?
Where it's not I guess in the movie. Oh, wait, my bad. I lost my train of thought on what I was saying.
Take your time.
That it wasn't organized people. It wasn't organized crime. It was just individual people just grabbing kids and stuff, or people against their will.
Well,
and soliciting.
See, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm going based on what I've been told because I didn't work directly in that field.
Yeah.
But I know people that work in the field,
Mm-hmm.
and the way they explained it to me, it's a lot worse than people know.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going based on secondhand information.
Okay.
And the people that I'm talking to are pretty credible, so that I'm quite certain that what they're telling me is accurate.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
you know, they're not sugarcoating it. It's disgusting, and I'm not sure if they're being protected or there's just lack of information. But the federal system moves real slow. So, you know, it takes years. All of a sudden, you say so and so was finally arrested for trafficking children or whatever, you know, and they have a federal offense in the United States District Court, and they're finally putting them on trial. You know, before a case goes to the U.S. attorney, it usually takes many, many years to get to that level. So, you know, what happened from the start of the investigation to the beginning, you have no idea, you know, what transpired and why it took that long, but it usually does.
Wow.
You know, you have FBI agents, you have local police that are federalized that work in those, work on those cases, and so you don't know how really seriously bad it is. You know, and they don't publicize it. It's not on TV, and you're not going to hear about it.
Yeah, it's because it's not because when I remember I did a high school project over it and stuff, and I couldn't find that much information online about it. And
That's
stuff.
right. That's
and
right.
And the information I found was like pretty vague.
That's correct.
And I'm just like, damn, like there really isn't that much
you
information.
know, I mean, what is the name of the guy that was the most prominent individual that was the premier child trafficker in the history of the country? Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah.
What happened to him?
Supposedly died in prison.
Right. They murdered the guy.
Yeah.
Somebody that was on that list that participated in those, you know, child sex ring bumped him off because they could not afford to lose their career. And somebody got paid. The guard fell asleep and the camera wasn't working. Oh, really? All of that happens at the same time?
Yeah, it's so
bull crap.
Yeah, it's BS.
They should have put those guards, whoever they were, they should have put them in prison. They should have said, look, this is too big. You got to cut, you know. What's the difference between Jeffrey Epstein and George Floyd? You killed a suspect in custody.
Yeah.
We had riots for some guy over a fraudulent bill. Riots, people killed, police officers, precincts burned nationwide. You mean to tell me we're more concerned with a guy over a fraudulent bill than we are a guy over that was trafficking children? Why didn't we have riots over Jeffrey Epstein?
The media was closed. The censored and everything.
Right. I mean, you got to be kidding. I mean, you mean George Floyd's life was more important than Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's a human trafficker. There should have been riots in the streets to demand who did it.
Yeah. But there isn't.
And we got Chauvin, who probably was doing what he was told. I mean, in the training manual, it shows that exact position, but they wouldn't let that in the evidence.
Yeah.
So he put a knee on a guy and the guy dies. This guard kills a guy. Did they do anything to them guards?
Nah.
Nothing.
They let that.
Nothing. They still ain't found who did it. And he committed suicide. Bull.
Yeah.
There ain't no way. I mean, Dr. Biden looked at it and he said it's not consistent with suicide.
Because I think inside his cellmate, he was some big guy. Some big mafioso.
Why was he in a cellmate? Why wouldn't he put in a cell by himself with cameras on it 24/7? You have a federal guy in federal custody and you got him with a cellmate and the cameras are bad and the guys are sleeping. All I see is somebody's family got paid.
Yeah.
Millions to let them get him shut up because he knew too much.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're taking out billionaires, I mean, who knows who was on that list?
And yeah, and going back to the human trafficking, I know you didn't work in it and stuff, but like I guess like how do they bring like the kids or the women and stuff over like to do it and stuff? Like is it through plane, through cars? They go through Atlanta and stuff, or
I'm not sure what you're asking.
like well like how do they transport the people and stuff?
Oh, he had a Lear jet.
Oh no, I'm talking.
He had an island. He would bring the girls down to his island.
Yeah.
With a jet. He's a billionaire.
Yeah.
He had unlimited resources. Bill Clinton took 3 flights.
Yeah,
he's on the logs. What's the guy that owns Microsoft? Bill Gates. He was on the list. Now, why were they going down to that island?
Hey, with them kids and stuff, man.
There you have it.
Yeah. No, but I'm talking about in Atlanta, Georgia. About the human trafficking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I never worked human trafficking.
All right.
So I don't know. All I've been told is it's a lot worse than
what we know.
What people know.
Yeah.
And we would be disgusted by it if we knew. And there's some high-end individuals involved, and I'm like, wow. So that's, I don't know who or what, but supposedly it's a federal investigation, and they're supposed to be doing the right work. So who knows?
Yeah. Oh. All right. Let's see. What else?
Well, we probably need to call it a wrap. I mean,
Okay.
it's getting around 5 o'clock.
All right. Sounds good.
And so hopefully that will get you where you need to be. And if we need to do this again, we can do part 3.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. Well,